Greetings, I'm Commodore Philip Gilfus of the USS Merlin, and this is Computer Arch, chatting with Star Trek content creators. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Zila of zilatreks. Zila, welcome aboard.
Hi, so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. So we're going to begin with our first section, pilot episode. So this is when we get into your Star Trek origins. So pretty basic question. How did you get to Star Trek? When did you get into Star Trek? What was your first? All that wonderful stuff.
Yeah, so compared to others, am somewhat of a newbie fan. I started watching Star Trek 5 years ago in 2021. And my friends were watching Deep Space Nine at the time, and they were, coming to like the group hangs with so much like chatter about like Cardassians and Ferengi and this and that. I kept asking like, okay, someone explain the joke. But they were like, you just have to watch it. So eventually they had like a little watch party for me, and I got to see the pilot of Deep Space Nine Emissary, and I was blown away. It to this day one of my favorite pilot episodes, and episodes in general. And I was just so enamored with Cisco and the prophets. It was one of my first sci-fi. So yeah, I've been hooked ever since.
One thing I appreciated because you did a some writing about this experience that I was reading, and one thing I appreciated. Well, as much as I can appreciate, is how, you have this sort of black community, these black friends, and then you're watching, this black lead, black family, with the Ciscos and everyone.
Totally.
And you talked about how much that meant to you at the time. But again, there's a little bit of like 5 year reflection, but I guess going back 5 years, what was that at the time meaning to you watching this sci-fi nerd thing? Like, I'm sure you've heard Star Trek, but you're like, wait a minute, this is
Right.
it's people like me.
Totally, totally. I mean, when you think of Star Trek, you think Kirk and Spock, and obviously Uhura was, we know about that. And but like not having experienced Star Trek myself at the time, I didn't realize that there was anything beyond those things, anything beyond like Picard or like these big figureheads I wasn't like aware of. Um, so Deep Space Nine was just like I never heard of Cisco, never heard of Dax, never heard of like Bashir, like all of these other things. And now I know why. It was sort of the middle child they said, right? The actors of the show. But I mean, the way that and as I kept watching Deep Space Nine, that they address issues of blackness blew me away. Like I had no idea that this was going on in the 90s and in sci-fi.
We're trying to
And
keep a well hidden secret.
right, exactly. So um I very much enjoyed it. And of course, because my group of friends is black, like we were able to have some really cool discussions around the show. And like it just felt very special to be watching it with them and just like enjoying sci-fi with and being able to enjoy sci-fi and not have to like parse through a bunch of racist stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, well, you say that, I saw your reaction to watching Code of Honor.
Right. True. True. It's gotten much better. It's come a long
Now,
way.
have your friends sort of given you the roadmap, or are you sort of exploring on your own about, like, so, you started with DS9, like what was next, or how,
Right.
how did you make your journey, and what's left on the table?
A lot. I have 6 years worth to catch up on, and I know I was slow. I'm not a super good binger, so I have a lot. But what I will say is they definitely gave me the roadmap. And
From
my friends who
there to
are
here.
from there to here, they also like my friends went back, even though I'm slower. They have gone back and watched everything, like starting with honestly, one of them watched it in chronological according to the show. So they started with Enterprise
Mhm.
because I don't think Discovery and that had been out at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they went through a bunch through that order. But I myself, just go based on what I feel like watching next. So after Deep Space Nine, I watched Voyager because I was really interested in Janeway. Loved it so much. Then I actually watched Lower Decks because I was like, oh, I should wait till watch everything else so I get the jokes. But I was too excited when I watched the pilot, and I was so enamored with Mariner that I was just like, that is my soul sister. So I blew through that. Now I'm going through TNG. I watched Starfleet Academy as it came out. And then I've watched pockets of other things. Like I've seen some Toss episodes, The Cage Where No Man Has Gone Before. I skipped around. I've seen the pilot of Enterprise. Like I've seen bits of everything. Um, but yeah, in terms of like where I'm watching right now is TNG.
Cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the always the challenge because we're talking Star Trek, but even over here in the UK, I'm a big Doctor Who person too. But same question:
True.
60 years. Where do you start? Where do you start? Where do you tell someone to start? So you sort of dived into DS9, which is you sort of get that 24th century world. So you got
Yeah,
Voyager, like you said, you got TNG to go. You sort of. But then once you're there, where do you go? Do you go to the past?
right.
I mean, TOS or Enterprise, like I said, if you're defending
Hmm.
chronologically, or do you go, and I know, like you said, Starfleet Academy you were doing, then
Yeah.
Discovery, everything else, because then, you don't want to watch Picard until you finish TNG. So,
Exactly,
that's that.
exactly. It's yeah, so age
But
old
there's so much
question,
good
but
stuff. That means,
yes, truly. I'm kind of happy to be a newbie and just have so much to consume. Like it makes me excited and I always have something to look forward to.
yeah, I mean, the fact that you watch Lower Decks without knowing, hand quote, the jokes, I mean, I think it's
Mhm.
funny. I mean, could stand on its own, I know, but I mean,
For
there's
sure.
such deep cuts, it's like,
Yeah,
that's something to rewatch in 5 years to be like, oh, I get
totally.
it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we're going to move on to Hollow Pursuits. All right. For this one, we're going to get into what you do, about talking about being a Star Trek content creator. So I guess if you don't mind getting to maybe the origins of being
Mhm.
a content creator, and then we'll get to kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So like, how did you start? When did lightning strike and you turned on a webcam or your phone
Yeah.
or whatever and went to work?
Totally. So I have always liked video. I am a video editor by trade, and I was creating little videos around random things. And I actually thought about like, oh, it would be fun to make Star Trek videos, but I was worried that I didn't know enough to like put my work out there, and I didn't want to be like, well, actually, by a bunch of people. And so, but one day I made. Oh, I think I made two videos sort of in tandem, but I think the first one I posted was, and hopefully this is fine for like a PG-13 audience, but I posted my dream blunt rotation for D Space Nine, and that one really took off because people wanted to chime in on my choices and also, input who they would have. And so that was really fun, and no one really well actually me or like chastised. Well, they did a little bit because I accidentally said that Morn didn't talk,
Uh,
and everyone was quick to
Morn
remind
can't shut
me.
up. That's the
Right,
problem.
exactly. So, but that honestly like broke the seal. It was all in fun, it wasn't like mean spirited or anything. So I didn't feel so afraid to like put out something wrong, quote unquote. So I did that. And then I did my captain's vlogs. I started doing that where I embody and role play like a captain on Earth who's just confused and angered by everything, like having to do laundry and, cook dinner when her replicators broke, and that felt very fun to me. So yeah, I just started doing little videos like that, and people really liked them, and I really liked interacting with Trekkies online and getting to share my thoughts on different shows and make jokes, and we're just some of the funniest, coolest people in the world, and it truly is the world.
Mhm.
They're all over. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started and
Yeah.
why I continue.
And looking back, now I'll admit I've most of what I see from you is on Instagram. So if there's anything of your stuff not on Instagram, I haven't seen. But
Not much.
I like that you tell me that there seems to be sort of different venues. And I don't know if it's all purposeful of like, I feel like this, or I'm going to try this, or if it's still feeling out what you want to do. I mean, like, this is just some of the categories I have. This is, I'm sure,
Yeah.
not exhaustive of like, you sort of have personal reflection videos about like how Star Trek has been meaningful to you and dealing with your own experience, and how your own personal motivations. And then you sort of have, you would not use this word, but I'm so you don't have to, but like adulting of like, how do I do,
Yeah.
like as you mentioned, go to the store. How am I doing this? And you sort of had your motivational book, which, feel free to talk about that. And then you sort of just have your more comedic skits, like you said. But, when you're trying to figure out, your content, is it, whatever the wind's blowing, or is it like, here's my 5 categories, or how's that all starting?
That's such a good and interesting question. Thank you for asking. No one's ever asked me about that before, but it truly is kind of where the wind takes me. And I feel really grateful because I think content creators a lot of times they have to, niche down and or all these things in order to like get traction and connect with other and get their work seen. Um, and I feel lucky because I feel like as long as I'm talking about Star Trek, I am able to connect with the Trekkies and they will find me and the connection kind of happens. And so there are times where I feel in such like a comedy creative mood where I'm like, oh my God, this would be so funny. This would be so funny. And I'm like just firing those off and it feels really natural. And then there's other times where I just in my life, I'm feeling really reflective about how Star Trek is super meaningful to me. Like it's not just super funny and amazing in that way, but it's meaningful in that it changes the way that I behave. It changes the way that I look at the world. And I wanna make art or videos around that. And so yeah, like last year, end of the year time, you're feeling super reflective. I was turning 30. Um, and I had my comedy brain, which was like, oh my God, it's like that episode of Deep Space Nine where Bashir turns 30 and I feel like I'm gonna like start becoming really wrinkly and old. But there's also this mode that I was like, I want to make this my captain year, my 30th year, my captain year. So I had this whole idea for like writing a wellness journal planner thing that I designed. And everyone has just been really supportive of all the different weird turns my Star Trek brain takes me. So it is kind of like wherever I'm at in life. But yeah.
And I guess, for folks who are either don't know anything about, I mean, other than just loving to watch it, but for folks who don't know, what it's like to create content, or even for those who are like, I want to do it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, without any trade secrets, obviously
No,
revealing, but you kind of explain your process of sort of like from idea to it's posted.
Yes. So I guess for the comedy skits, sometimes you'll either be watching Star Trek or you'll be thinking about a moment that sticks out to you. And I don't know if this is how it works in other people's heads, but you kind of exaggerate it a little bit in your mind. So I remember when I wrote a skit that's one of my favorites of Cisco and Kira, and Kira's asking to borrow the runabout, and I'm like, she was always just trying to do her own shit and asking Cisco to use the runabout. And so I was on the train and just playing that in my mind, and I'd be like, it'd be so funny to have like an exaggerated conversation of how this usually goes down. So I literally wrote it in 10 minutes, went home and filmed it in 20, and then edited another 20 or 30 and just put it out there. But because it's the essence of it is so there and people know exactly the vibe that I'm talking about, it seemed to resonate. So I think if you're interested in doing that sort of thing, just like watch Star Trek with the eye of like, oh, this is always happening and it's so funny, or just a particular moment you really like. I had a moment that I liked of when Garrick walks in on Bashir's holosuite program, and that is so funny in and of itself. It's like almost not even parody to redo it. Like it's just, but just exaggerating it a little bit, I thought was really fun. So, yeah.
One thing about your Cisco Kira skit, and I don't know if you know this or if anyone said this, I don't know, I hope this isn't like a backhand compliment, but like for the most part in all of your skits, like you don't really have voices to me, but like, and maybe you're trying to, and I apologize, but
No,
you
no,
do
no,
have
no.
a Cisco voice.
I have a Cisco. Yeah, people bring that up quite a bit. And that was the first time I ever did it. And like I said, I came home and I filmed it in 10 minutes. So I didn't know that I could do a Cisco voice. I just wanted to pretend to be them. And it came out such a way that I was like, oh wow, I'm doing an impression. Like I don't know, it's not something that I ever did. And so people I think I didn't actually redo it until my latest video. I did a The Office spoof of like Take Me Out to the Hall Suite, and I like redid it there. But when people would ask me to do it again, I would get nervous because I was like, I don't know how I did it the first time. It was like laying in a well. Yeah, it just came out of me. I mean, the spirit made me first. No, but yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So yeah, what is there any? And I know it's hard to explain unless someone else is doing it, but I guess the basics of like, so what software are you using, or what are you like phones or Mac versus PC and all those wonderful things?
For sure. I film everything on my iPhone. I have like a 16 Pro. So it's really good. And then I have a MacBook and I use a Premiere Pro. I've been using it for a super long time because I do my video editing. I've been doing my video editing for a while. And a little phone tripod. It's pretty bare bones. I don't even I have a mic for like podcast stuff, but for those videos, I just use the iPhone camera. So it's really simple. Anyone can do it. A lot of people do. So if you're interested in it, I think you should go for it because people have these genius things that need to be put out into the world, and I'm super about that.
And what are your, I mean, and again, I'm not trying to put any pressure on you because it's only been like a year or two or three. You've done, but like, what's sort of your vision other than having fun and expressing yourself, which is fine enough, but what's your sort of vision for your what you're doing? Because I wouldn't say your channel because it's multiple platforms, so it's not like one channel.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a great question that I do think about. Because when you put something like that out, like a Deep Space Nine Dream blunt rotation, you're never gonna be, you're not really like, this is my future, you know? Like
you didn't realize how would get you to talk to Tawny?
Yeah,
You didn't that
yes,
like just instantly
truly,
you'd be meeting Starfleet Academy personnel, that you would be on TV shows. You didn't think that? Really?
Exactly. It's felt insanely lucky, and but I do think it goes to show that it's like when you're doing stuff that you love and you're pursuing the things that you love in a like do get organized about it, but just a passionate way, then good things will come your way. And so but in terms of your question about what I see for it, I didn't talk about this so much, but I do have a process also of how I want things, like I want to also talk a lot about how Star Trek motivates people in real life, because as much as I like talking about uh you know rehashing different ships or different characters, I also think that it shouldn't just inspire us to like live in the world of Star Trek, but to create the world of Star Trek in the present that we live in. And so I want to do more with that. I have been making videos. Like I have this new challenge called the Captain Summer 90, because I thought, how cool would it be if we could all get really like Starfleet discipline together as like a community, like a little academy of our own. So things like that I really have been getting into, and I hope to expand. And I also have been really getting into astrophysics, which I'm learning is not in any way ahistorical. Like the direct impact Star Trek has had on the space industry is actually wild. And I feel like I am no different. I'm like reading more about astrophysics. I'm getting to know content creators in STEM and the aerospace industry. And I want to expand and learn more about that and see where that takes me as well. If I could, I mean, I majored in journalism in school, so I would love to, yes.
Communications is major.
Woo! Exactly. I was like, wow, I used to do reporting on science and STEM when I was in school. So is that something maybe I could go back to, knowing what I know now? And yeah, so that intersection I'm also really interested in.
No, and that's really inspirational and really talks about the power of Trek.
Truly.
To really, I mean, even if it's no more than folks going like, they mentioned, you know, a black hole intersecting with dark matter. Like, is that real? Did they? And then like you're like,
Right.
I'm going to look that up because I mean, like they employ people that seem to be real on for consultants, and
Right.
like half the time it's real, half the
Right.
time it's technobabble, but nevertheless, you're like, I want to look that up.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Um, and then one thing you've talked about in your videos for your more reflective videos, and so tell me if this is all right to talk about. But you've talked about sort of your sort of definitely daily struggles of like sometimes not wanting to do things, and so now being a quote unquote content creator, where you like, what's your schedule? Oh, I got to post weekly or every other day. Has that either been helpful? I'm like, oh, no, I need to do this. All right, so that kind of gives you a focus, or is it like now a hindrance of like, oh, I got to post something, or else I'm gonna lose an audience and da 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 da.
Yeah, I think there is this pressure to post. I definitely get some like content creator advice on my algorithm, and it's all like consistency, consistency, consistency. But I think more than that on my mind is how short form content is not ultimately good for the human brain. And I'm in this space, so I'm really glad you asked about it actually, where I'm like struggling with that. I don't want to contribute to that. I don't want that to happen to me. I do see exactly how my attention span suffers when I'm on the apps for like a really long time, like hours, honestly. And so I'm really wrestling with that. I'm not quite sure how I want to like reconcile that. I have my own personal things, right? Like where I set timers and um but in terms of like being a creator, I'm also really conscious of that. And so I am trying things like I want to interact with more Trekkies on Discord. I want to go to conventions in real life. I interact with people on Patreon, which is like not so much algorithmic. And I am exploring like doing more long form videos and podcasts. So I am thinking about that. I'm not saying that short form is like all bad. I think there's so much wonderful gems and wonderful. It has been my means of connection to a larger Trekkie community. So I'm really, really grateful for that. But it is hard. And I'm also definitely taking off pressure to post every day because I don't think that, I mean, I could lose followers and my real life will still be fine. I have to remind myself of that. And I know that my ultimate goal is connection as opposed to like followers, subscribers count. My ultimate goal is to be able to connect with the larger Trekkie community and be like a positive person within it.
And I imagine, and again, I don't know, but I imagine there's a struggle between, you started doing this because you love Trek and because you have fun. And then there's always this pressure, whether it's external or even your own mind of like, but now I have to make it full money and I have to be structured. And like,
Yeah.
you lose, if you do something for fun, you have to monetize it. That's the rule in America.
Yes.
But,
It's so true. Now I know why you got out. No, but yeah, it's awful, and it's so antithetical to Star Trek. So yes, there's both like external and internal pressures that I'm actively working against it because one, I honestly I don't make that much money doing what I do. And my friends are all like, "Oh, she has 18,000 followers, big money now." No, I'm still really, really broke, and that's okay. I have other ways of paying my bills, thankfully. But yeah, I just also just don't want that to become what this is to me. Star Trek is so special to me that ruining it with money would be earth-shattering. Like, yeah, so yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
awesome. All right. With that, we'll now go into crew review. So this is where I'm going to talk about some highlights that I've really enjoyed from you, and kind of talk maybe about the process behind it. One of the ones, this is in no particular order. You did one from Year of Hell with Janeway and Chakotay. For folks who don't remember, you sort of were spoofing the scene where Chakotay gives Janeway a pocket watch, if I remember, and she's not all about it. And I loved your caption where you're like, I'm not sure whose side I'm on here. But anyway, well, can you kind of tell me about sort of like the birth to posting of that idea of that post, and what you enjoyed about it?
Yes, thank you. I don't get to talk about that one that much, and that might be my favorite one because I found, first of all, Year of Hell, what a masterpiece, two-parter. I was obsessed when I watched it, thought it was so good. And yeah, rewatching that scene is so funny to me. Anything Chakotay Janeway is funny to me because it's like, oh, this guy he is doing everything he can. He is the sweetheart of a man, and she's not ever having it, and it's so crazy. So that always makes me laugh a little, and so that's watching that scene is how I came up with that idea. And writing it, I just, oh my gosh, I was just like, imagine someone doing something so precious for you and just shutting it down. But then again, that's why you love Janeway, because she's always doing what she needs to do for the crew. So that's why when I was writing the caption, I was trying to think of what to say, like, whose side am I on? I don't know whose side I'm on, you know? So filming that was really fun. I do have like a little reference to a meme in there from like Tyler the Creator. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how but really came up with all of that. But I just love that dynamic so much, and I love writing skits about it.
I think what is now, and I say this in terms of 21st century Treks. I haven't made my new mental list with all the new shows, but like, just 20th century Trek. Voyager's always been my second favorite in a good way. I'm a stereotypical, 1980s born TNG fan. Because Picard's always sort of on a pedestal for me, but I like Janeway, and it's because she's wrong as much as she's right. And I find that fascinating, that you can argue that it isn't necessarily like, the religious figure of Cisco or, all this, but like, not that she's the most human, but like, in other words, it's so, like, I always joked to myself that like, she relieves Chakotay of his position like every other episode, just because he dares to have a disagreement. Like, he is your first officer. I think he's supposed to, you're relieved, Chakotay. I'm like, okay. All right.
Totally. Like, well, first of all, I watched Voyager at a very chaotic time in my life. So it wasn't that long. It was like two years ago, maybe. And I just was going through so much. And I felt like Janeway in that, like, I'm in a sea of chaos, and I feel like I am placed in a situation where I don't even have my wits about me. Like, she doesn't have Starfleet. She has like 2 warring crew factions, and all she has is her principles, and sometimes she's wrong, and she's also super emotional. One of my favorite episodes is Night, where you don't even see her for the first like 17 minutes or something crazy like that, because she's self-isolating. I was like, preaching to the choir, like, so human. And so, yeah, I love watching her in all of her chaotic decision making, because you just know she's doing the best she can. Right or wrong, she's doing the best she can.
It's always that meme. There's the right way, the wrong way, and the Janeway.
Janeway.
Another one of your videos that really got me, and I think I told you this one of the first times I contacted you, was Bashir's first week. And I think what kills me, just from a comedic standpoint, and it's the material too, but it's also the way you did it, where you're portraying Bashir with all of his Mostly dumb. I know you had some good ones in there, but mostly dumb opinions. Naive. Let's say naive. That's the word.
Naive, yeah.
But the way you did the little voices on the side just kills me in unison. I'm like, that's hilarious.
And it was so, I watched the pilot recently with for my brother, because we have a podcast where I just recount Star Trek to him. And I could not believe how much of a noob he was. I completely forgot that he was like, oh, the Cardassians wouldn't hurt us. I was like, who is this guy? Like, the voices are honestly half me. But I thought it was funny how everyone was kind of like, this guy. So poor thing. I love that he's grown, but that is how that sketch came to my mind.
And I don't know if that people would necessarily classify him this way, but I think, at least in this instance, Bashir is a very British character of, that, I'm not saying this explicitly, but that sort of imperial past of just like showing up to a country and being like, well, this is the middle of nowhere. And like, people live here, man. People live here. I don't know what you're talking about.
And Kira shut that down real quick. Real quick. So, yeah.
And another one of your videos, and you mentioned it a little bit, though not explicitly, because this is where it got me curious about what order you're watching Star Trek in, because it's your Amok Time series. Because you've done a few. So, because I was curious of like, how is she getting to TOS? Because I know you're DS9 and you've done like, and you're touching T, and she's like, because I can imagine, and you tell me.
Yeah,
because you've done a bunch of videos and they're all funny, but I could just imagine you're like, okay, I'm making this up. This is not really you.
No, go ahead.
TOS, this is older. There's probably gonna be some iffy stuff, whatever. But it's Star Trek. We'll see. And it's the Spock's horny and he'll die if he doesn't have sex episode. And you're like, what?
Oh my goodness!
No one prepared you for that one.
That's the thing. Like, the reason I watched Amok Time is because I heard it was the Spock horny episode, and that's why I wanted to watch it. I was like, I gotta see that. Mm-hmm. So it was so famed in its, in its lore and how much, stuff has been built up because of that. I was like, okay, even if I'm watching out of order, I'm gonna like pick that one. And I was not disappointed at all. Surprised. I was like, this is as funny. And sometimes it's funny because when I'm recounting episodes to my brother, for example, I'm like, he thinks it's funny because I'm telling it funny. But sometimes it's like, I'm like, no, it's just that funny.
Verbatim.
It's just it's verbatim. This is exactly. So I feel like Amok Time is one of those where it's just like, this is funny. And I think they meant it to, of course, some elements they were like taking a little too serious or whatever. But this is just entertaining because it is an entertaining show. And that's why it's lasted for 6 years.
So. I think my favorite part of your, because like I said, I think you did like, I don't know.
Yeah, I did a series.
5 or 6 videos.
Yeah.
But every time you have McCoy, his sort of catchphrase with Spock is like, I don't care about the guy, honestly. But I don't even, whatever, F him. But anyway, Yeah,
just vibes I've gotten. Just vibes I'm getting from McCoy. I don't, admittedly have the full picture. But it's funny. But you also kind of know that he's pretending a little bit. Like, he doesn't care, but he does care. But he wants Kirk to know he doesn't care. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. Hopefully I'm right. But that's what I was trying to give off.
I also feel like you have now your basis for your lower decks TOS, because I think your Chekhov Sulu one of like, he's just one guy. He's just one guy. Why is the world all about the one guy?
It's so real. Yeah. There's so much good dynamics in Trek. That's why I love crew, and every Trek show is ensemble, and you get to play around with all those different dynamics. So there's like an endless combination of funny scenarios that can arise, and Trek Sulu is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think the thing when I was watching TOS, because I it doesn't matter the years of difference, both age-wise and both in time, but like you sort of had that stereotype of like, oh yeah, the Kirk's going to be with the ladies and there's going to be Klingons, and then you watch it and it's like, it is true the ensemble was not used that much, but they're used much more than is the stereotype. And so like you do get sort of like, here's part, and I mean, I don't want to try to spoil anything, but you know, Uhura does get a chance to sing in the lounge sometimes, and you know, you get some moments with Scotty. What is he like as a commander? I mean, sitting in the chair, you know, and it's sort of like stuff you don't think that you ever see, but like they took their time sometimes. There's a little filler, a little bit sometimes in TOS.
100%. And that's the other thing I do like about making sketches is that those little moments I can drag them out. So for the Amok time, for example, like when Spring comes on the screen, Uhura does a look like a little like ooh, you know, and I was like, what is going through her mind? So that's how I made the sketch about Uhura on the communicator with someone. Like, this is some messy shit, like, you know. So that's another thing I love about making.
You know, like I didn't know Spock was about that life, but
right, exactly. Yeah.
Now, one thing, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with your videos, but I think it has to be talked about. And that is, and you know, nobody loves more than a man talking about a woman's clothes, but there are definitely some clothes we have to talk about. Because I do have some questions. One, I will not call them what you call them, but you have some in the pale moonlight shorts.
Yes.
Can I ask, where did they come from?
Oh my goodness. So before I knew that the entire internet had Trekkies full of them, I thought only Trekkies lived on Tumblr because I knew that was where fandoms existed. So that's immediately where I went to find Trekkies after I got obsessed with the show. And of course, the Tumblr Trekkies were advertising like in the pale moonlight, I'll say booty shorts. So
and can you describe them for those who don't?
Yes, it is just a pair of very short shorts that have the entire In the Pale Moonlight monologue written across the butt. And I saw that and I was like, I wasn't balling money wise at the time, but I was like, I have to spend $35 on this immediately. And I swear, like, people might think I'm gatekeeping, but whoever sold them, do not sell them anymore. I don't know where they've gone. I've looked, I've searched the seller. They were on Etsy. They are no longer. So I don't know where people can find them.
It's like that movie, like, I just sold it from that guy, and it's just a tumbleweed.
Yeah, exactly. But what a hero, right? One of my favorite Trek things that I own.
And then we have to talk about the PJs.
Yes.
Where'd you get that? And then these people may know about these more because these are sort of an on-screen equivalent this is from Starfleet Academy, the captain's pajamas that she wears.
Yes, I was super, super lucky that the Starfleet Academy social media representative reached out to me. They gave them as like PR basically to a couple different content creators, and they are a dream. I feel so lucky. I wish that they started selling them. I thought that was their plan, but maybe they will in the future. But essentially, I gave them my measurements so they custom fit me. The costume team worked on that. Wow. And they feel so wonderful. They're very nice quality fabric.
What is it? I mean, there's too much information.
Yeah, no, it's
like, what's the material?
Oh, I really wish I knew. They feel satiny. I'm not a big, yeah. But they're probably a blend of some sort. But they're really nice. Yeah. So I feel so cool.
People don't remember, these have like the warp cores all over.
Yes, the warp cores all over them. Captain Nala.
Mm-hmm. And then, and again, my mom is still living, so I can't say this word. But like you have your Vulcan shirt, which I'll let you describe, that you've a recent acquisition.
Yes. One can call them the "See You Next Tuvok" shirt as one of I can't remember their handle, but a Trekkie dubbed them that. And they have the symbol, the Vulcan salute on it. And that came about the same way this shirt came about, my Gothmanist shirt. I made a video long time ago, I think last year sometime, called Pretentious Music Guy in Starfleet. And he just like has all these opinions like, oh, Betazoid R&B is the best, or like Ferengi reggae is the best, And I really like that skit. And I have a character called, maybe you have to bleep this, sorry, but he was like, you've never heard of Tapussy? This is like a a rapper, and I wanted to make that shirt, but it was just like a little bit. So I came up with that idea, like maybe that was their tour shirt. And then this is Goth Menace, which is also a fake band that Pretentious Music Eye's really into. So I just started making fake t-shirts or fake band t-shirts for the fun of it. And yeah, people had been requesting shirts when that video came out, and it took me months and months to actually do it, but
Now,
that's how it
do they
came
perform
about.
at the festival with Choo Choo? Because that's
Right.
so the
Yeah.
when they get that third shoe out, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. With that, let's go to 018. So, with this journey of being a Trek content creator, you've got to engage with lots of people, your audience, other creators, either I'm sure maybe ones you knew or at least followed beforehand, and ones you've discovered in this journey, and then as well as getting to go into actual Trek people, and we can talk about your television appearance here in a little bit. But I guess when it comes to actual content creators, I guess who maybe were your influences, who did you follow beforehand, and then who have you kind of found, and as you've
Mhm.
built this or become a member of this community?
Yeah. So, before I started posting, my algorithm was not really Trekkie. So it really came as I
We're a
started.
well kept secret.
Right, I
Yeah.
guess. So, but some of the first ones that I connected with, Linda Pages, who's an incredible content creator. She does really funny like skits about Voyager, which is her fave, and Starfleet Academy as of late. And Gracie Ann, who is an amazing content creator who makes Star Trek EDM music. It is so good. I would highly recommend you checking it out. Anna Rose is a phenomenal. So I'll say Anna Rose is a super dope Star Trek cosplayer, and she has a uh, podcast called Observation Lounge with Artificial, and they are so funny together. Star Trek drag, incredible, like just really really funny. So those are some, I mean, there's so many, and so I'm having trouble like bringing them all to mind. Milky Way Flyer was one of the first. She does D Space Nine, currently D Space Nine rewatches and lives. And Holodeck Hose, I'll also say super good.
Mm.
And lastly, New Blurred Order is a Black nerd podcast that I have worked with a lot, and they have nerd content of all kinds, but a lot of cool Star Trek content as well.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, and again, I'm sure I'm not seeing it all, but like your collabs, if I can say it
Yeah.
that you've done. I mean, and again, I don't. I mean, this is not like decades ago. This is like 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And maybe this is just my algorithm, and then it's my fault. But at least the stereotype is when it comes to Trek fandom, at least podcasts and all that stuff. What do you call a group of three white men? A podcast. But like and so predominantly it seems like there's this group of women and then black Trek fans and then people of color Trek fans, and like which is not sort of the quote unquote stereotype. Now of course obviously we can argue about in the beginning in the 70s this
Mhm.
was mostly women who were, but like the sort of the stereotype is people that look like me that are doing Trek podcasts and all that. But like is that just a vicious stereotype because of the algorithms, or is this a new community, or is it they've always been there and like thank you for discovering
That's
we've always been here? What have you kind of discovered
right.
in your own journey?
That's such a good question because in my journey, I feel like I'm the same as everyone else, where I have this stereotype in my mind of what a Trek fan is. And then based on what I discovered, it's completely different. And I do think my algorithm is mostly women and people of color, content creators. And I don't know what other people's algorithms, because I know that there are white men Star Trek content creators out there, and I think that a lot of them do a good job. I'm like fans of a lot of them. But it is IDIC. It is a lot. It's a lot of different types out there, and I do think it has been that way. I just don't think, I mean, Lieutenant Ray is a Black woman Star Trek content creator who's been doing it for years, and I'm sure like there has to have been many predecessors before like TikTok came up and Sci-Fi Sisters. Oh my God, like they are OG fans and they have been there since Toss. And they have so I do think that we've always been here. It really does depend on what the algorithm pushes and if you are just open to seeking it out. Um, that being said, I do think it's more challenging for women and people of color to be content creators, not only because of what algorithms do, but because there's a lot of harassment. There is a lot of sketchy people in the DMs asking for explicit things and that will turn people away from being a content creator. Um, but I do think that in terms of people who love Trek, it is truly just as diverse as you would imagine it to be. And that's awesome. And it should continue.
And then one thing you're talking about, and for folks, if you're going to be a content creator, it's going to be about the fun, the ideas, or maybe it's serious. Maybe you just want to be serious. That's fine too. The love of Trek, but you're making it public, and so you're going to have an audience. And so, what's kind of been your good, bad, and ugly experience with
Hmm.
your audience? Because obviously, you went from that zero count to much more than
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
followers. But what's kind of been your experience with whether it's in the comments or in the DMs or elsewhere about hey, what are they really responding to? And then
Hmm.
let's be real, has there been bad stuff or anything? But just as fair warning for folks, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. I think overwhelmingly positive. I'll say that. Like overwhelmingly, it has been people who love Trek finding people I who love Trek and just bonding over our favorite show. Um, so that's the good. I have made friends, like friends who I just now text regularly, and have gotten to meet in person and just really vibed with on a human connection level. So that is the good. I would say the bad and the ugly. Men are creepy sometimes, and that's just a society-wide problem. But when you're putting stuff out publicly on the internet, that's what it sometimes comes up. So that sucks. And then I'll also say mostly it wasn't until I started posting about Starfleet Academy, which had a very strong
So
organized hate
weird. That was
campaign.
so
Yeah,
weird.
it was really weird, but indicative of where we're at as a society, I think. And so I got a lot of like comments that were very bot-like, but unfortunately, I think came from real humans. That was just like, this is the worst Trek. This is bad. This is bad writing. This is terrible. You're not a real fan. This is that. You know. So it it happened to a lot of us. I'm not the only one. It was really unfortunate, but I think um yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the fandom, but I also think that it's just one section of the fandom. Unfortunately, that had ramifications across the board.
Yeah, because like I mean, look, I've been a Trekkie for decades, and been around Trekkies. But like, when you were like, oh, earlier, like this big welcoming community, I'm like, yeah, mostly,
Right.
mostly. Um, because and I don't, there's sort of there's a spectrum, as with all things in life, there's a spectrum of not like necessarily evil folks, but more folks of like me, who are like
Mhm.
diehard Trek people, and that can
Mhm.
take you in different directions when you're a dieharder,
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
could be like I'm so diehard that I appreciate it all, or I'm so diehard Star Trek is X, Y, and Z, and anything's not. No,
Right.
no, that's not it, and it's not that necessarily comes from an evil place, but of
Hmm.
course then there are people that are coming from an evil place. So I'm not trying to diminish that, but I guess
Yeah.
that's sort of like you're getting that full mixture of everyone, and it could be hard to tell like what's this Trekkies all about.
Right.
It's an odd group.
Yes. And I think it's interesting because people think, for example, as someone who really loved Starfleet Academy, I loved it so much and everything it was about. And I think it's really insulting to people who love Starfleet Academy to insinuate that I can't tell the difference between someone who has like valid critiques and who someone who just is actively racist and homophobic. Like, I totally respect if Starfleet Academy was not your bag. Like, it was very specific in its form and its tone. Um, but you can't tell me that there aren't many old white folks who really enjoyed the show. So for you to act like I'm just not differentiating between critique and your blatant racism and homophobia and sexism, it's like, come on, we're smarter than that.
Yeah. And so what, from a professional side, quote unquote,
Mhm.
how have you dealt with moderation? I mean, like, again, we're not saying it's all bad, but just the realities of, like, if you're a content creator, you got to think about these things, and,
Mhm.
how have you sort of dealt with that?
I think the one of the stars of Starfleet Academy, Kareem DNA, had one of the best videos about it, and I'm gonna quote him directly because he said he took advice from his family and he was like, "Y'all are not gonna have me out here looking crazy." And I definitely took that to heart. And in general, I'm a pretty big like ignore. Like I don't really engage with it. I know that it doesn't help anyone. It only makes me feel riled up. So there's
You're from
really
New
no
York
point.
City. You got
Uh, and you know what? I will say sorry. I've been here 10 years, but I'm not even from here. But
uh,
they've taught me a lot, let me tell you. They've taught me a lot about like having a thick skin, we'll say. And I just don't engage with that. Like you're truly clearly trying to get a rise out of me, and I don't feel the need to engage with your pathetic rhetoric. Sorry. Um, critique I will engage with, like real, like genuine. You want to get into the merits or this or that of the show. I'll get into that, but I'm not going to debate what is a racist comment with you. I don't, what do I look like? So, yeah.
yeah. And I don't mean to do all the negative, but it's a reality that
No.
people should know about,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And especially
Hmm.
in this, like I said, this weird Starfleet Academy. Like, again, not that I didn't know that there were some bad actors out there on Trek, but,
Hmm.
like, they really came out of the woodwork, my friend.
Yeah.
And so, but, like, I guess, ending on a happier note, like, has there been any follower or audience response that's either given you an idea or suggestions or any feedback that's kind of really affected you creatively?
Yes, all the time. Every time I post, I feel like people are so encouraging, and the fact that anyone laughs at anything I do makes me so happy. I've never considered myself to be quite like a comedian. But I have always liked to write. I've always liked to make videos and like edit. So the fact that it's bringing people joy and Trekkies are so loving in that way. They're quick to tell you like, keep going. This is making my day. So that has really pushed me to continue in times where I feel like maybe lapses in creativity. And then also with things like the official captain's log, I put a lot of like kind of heart and hard work into that, especially the wellness parts and the parts where I wrote, for example, like
And
Tuvok
sorry,
talking.
back up,
No, sure,
explain that
sure,
a little bit, that book a little bit
sure.
for those who don't know about that.
Yeah, I wrote this wellness journal and it's called the Official Captain's Log, and it's an effort to have Star Trek be a motivating guide to help you in physical wellness, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, financial, and social wellness. So for each of those, I wrote little fanfics from different characters that are basically like pep talks on so for example, for physical, I had Jack Ransom from Lower Decks write a little pep talk about how to take care of yourself and why exercise is important to him and things like that. And I've gotten really sweet feedback on how it has helped people to actually be motivated to care for themselves, to like reach their goals. And I just think that's what Star Trek does for me. So to be able to do that in the same way, it meant a lot to me to hear that from people.
Awesome. Well, now let's end this segment with some bragging. Who Trek stars have you been mixing with?
Well, yes, I had the absolute pleasure of getting to meet Karim DNA, who plays Jaden Krag on Starfleet Academy. We connected through social media, and I got to go to a private screening that he hosted for like friends and family of his episode and episode 5 of Starfleet Academy. And it was amazing. He is the best. He is as sweet and kind as he portrays online. At that screening, I got to meet New Spraka himself, Paul Giamatti. So that was really, really cool. I got to interview Tawny Newsome on a podcast with New Blurred Order about her writing the Sam episode in Starfleet Academy.
And don't think I don't notice she likes almost every one of your videos. So
I don't know that, but yes, now we are Instagram friends, and I am geeked out as much as you. Seriously, 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 like a hero to me. Her talent, not only as a voice actress, as an actress, but as a writer, like, oh my goodness, episode 5 of Starfleet Academy is one of my Trek of all time. And so for her to acknowledge my existence, and she said one of my videos was funny, like I almost passed out on the spot.
So, any remaining?
I think
I'm sure there's a lot, but any dream folks you'd like to meet?
dream folks. Oh, so many. I really would love to like get a photo with Kate Mulgrew. I at a convention I didn't meet per se, but I got a photo op, as we do with Jerry Ryan and Tim Russ. So that was huge for me. I would love to. I mean, let's think. Kate Mulgrew is definitely a huge one. I Nana is going to be at Trek Long Island, so I would really love to get a picture. And Terry Farrell eventually. Those are some big ones that I would really, really, and Cirroc Lofton. A lot of Deep Space Nine folks I think would be really cool.
And then one last brag. Tell us about your television experience.
Oh my God!
For folks who don't know, I'll do some for my British folks. So, not to steal your thunder,
No.
Zila was on a daytime chat show in the U.S. called the Kelly Clarkson Show. But go ahead, take it from there.
Yes, that was a dream. Linda Pages is a content creator friend of mine, and she sent me a TikTok because the producer was looking for Trekkie fans in New York. And so I submitted a video talking about why I love Trek, said a bunch of things that I probably said on this podcast just now, and they picked me. So I got to go to 30 Rock, which is our, like huge building where they film a bunch of shows. And it was Holly Hunter was the guest, along with Sandra Rossa, George Hawkins, and Carice Brooks from Starfleet Academy, so some of the cadets. And so I got to be in the audience as a live fan, and I got to say a little part about why Star Trek inspires me. And Holly Hunter, I didn't know at the time because they had me look at a camera that's facing away from the, Kelly and Holly. But she was like listening and nodding along as I saw in the footage after. So it was so freaking cool and so random. And it was just one of those lucky coincidences.
No, that's awesome. All right. With that, let's go to hailing frequencies. So, talking about being a content creator, let's sort of get into brass tacks about platforms. So, like I said, I know you mostly from Instagram. I'm sure your TikTok is probably where things are going. But kind of tell me about what you've done already, what you hope to do, and then kind of what are the plus and minuses, again, for people who are thinking about getting to the space. What are sort of your pros and cons of each one?
Yeah, great question. I started on TikTok. So I grew on there first. And it wasn't until pretty much a little last year, this year, that I started posting on Instagram, but I started reposting a bunch of stuff from TikTok. And I think I was able to grow quickly in that way because when you're really consistent, the algorithm likes your stuff. And so it pushes it out more. So now I would say I post pretty much double post on both or cross post on both. And each one is updated on the same exact moment as the other. So I treat them pretty equally. But TikTok, I feel like if you're trying to get into content creation, really favors like very consistent casual posts. Whereas Instagram, being a little bit more polished, even though you're not as consistent, um, you can grow that way. And then I posted a couple things on YouTube Reels, but honestly, it just is a lot. So I'm sticking mostly to Instagram and TikTok. But I really, I do a podcast with my brother called Star Trek Storytime, and I post those on Patreon. Um, Truly, the podcast is just me recounting stories of Star Trek and full episodes to my brother who's never seen Star Trek. So it's kind of fun to see a non-Trekkie's perspective on the craziness that is our show. But I post those on Patreon, and just because I wanted to try, like we were talking about, curating like a bit of a smaller community, that's not so algorithmically focused. But I do have all these ideas for long form videos, so I will be venturing into YouTube as soon as some capacity allows.
Mhm. I always find it, again, I'm not by no means an expert, but I always find it interesting how, in say the past 3 years or something, I'm making up, that it's always been like, oh, this generation, it's all short form and TikTok and da 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 da, which is, not true, not doesn't necessarily to this generation, but anyway, sort of the way things are going. But at the same time, you find 2.5 hour YouTube videos, and it's the same audience or same
Yeah.
demographic of that are watching
Hmm.
those too. So I don't think you can necessarily say you can only do things in 30 seconds.
Totally. Yeah, I do think, I mean, a lot of the gurus and marketing experts are saying that long form is going to become more and more popular as people are getting sick of having addled brains and like diverted attention spans. So yeah, long form, and I myself enjoy podcasts and listening to longer videos. It puts you at ease while you do your chores or whatever. So I agree. I don't think it's necessarily demographic specific.
All right. With that, let's go to level one diagnostic. For this one, I'm going to give you some quick questions, and don't even think about it. I'm just going to ask you a
Okay.
question. Then I'm going to ask you a follow up. So just don't even. There's no right or wrong answer. So let's
Okay.
just start off. Name a Trek series.
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine. What's your unpopular opinion about it?
Oh gosh, I know my unpopular opinion and I just get scared to say it every time. I don't love Kiko O'Brien. And I don't even know if that's
So much
unpopular.
for feminism. No,
I know,
kidding.
I know, totally. And that's why I don't like to say it because I know how I do think a lot of people dislike her in a very misogynist way. But me, I just don't like her because I think they wrote her misogynistically, is my take. And so I find her unenjoyable to watch on screen, even though I think Rosalind Chow is amazing and an incredible actress. But that's my unpopular opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's always hard because I'm thinking of other
Mhm.
franchises to have a character who's against the premise of the series.
Yeah,
So it's
right,
like Keiko's like, I don't want to be on the station. And we're like, but I do. I'm watching the show. And
right,
so it's hard to,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta grow up, but that's me.
But yeah. Unfortunately, I mean they're not terrible about it, but all Star Trek series are guilty of this, and I don't know how you're are into TNG, so I won't talk about that. But of like, let's introduce a child, and like children are around 24/7 for like 18 years. I can't just throw, and then O'Brien gets two. I'm like, we've seen the two kids like 5 times, maybe. I don't know.
Right,
So
right.
anyway,
So true. Yeah.
all right. So moving on. Name a Trek character.
Picard.
All right, for Jean-Luc Picard, what would be either your career or personal advice for him?
Oh my goodness, lighten up. Okay, I'm only on I'm only on season one of TNG. That's why it's my advice, but
Wow.
it's like
Yeah.
um I was so excited. I just watched the holodeck episode, the first Sticks and Hill episode. I'm assuming there's more just because that's how they're setting it. But he it's so excited to be having fun, and I was so happy for him, and then it all went wrong, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just this whole thing with Crusher, I'm like, oh my God, you like her? Why can't you just chill out? He's so serious. But so that's my for season one only knowledge
No,
advice
no,
for
no.
Picard.
I like it. Yeah, there's something you posted. Two things, because you've posted before, like you're not skipping anything, which is I love that. But
Mm.
two, you were like you've gotten, and this is pretty standard, like oh skip 1 and 2 of TNG, which I would be completely against that, and I'm not even
Okay.
coming from a I watch well I do watch everything, but I'm not that's not even the standpoint I'm coming from because like
Mm.
I'm a defender of one like yeah there's bad stuff,
For
but I mean there's
sure.
also some good like I mean like you've probably already seen Data Lore. I mean
That's
that's
my next one. I haven't seen it
okay.
yet,
Well,
but
then I
that's
won't spoil it.
the yeah,
I
okay.
will say it's a good one, but that doesn't help you any. But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, I mean, there's some, there's some jewels in there. I think, like, if you're skipping it, you're missing some stuff,
Right. I'm
especially,
enjoying myself.
you know.
Sorry, especially what?
Oh, well, I was just say, I mean, well, again, I'm not, but like, there's stuff that gets sequeled. I mean, so like, if you're skipping 1 and 2, you're gonna be confused when we get later on. So,
Real.
all right. So, and I don't know if you're someone who has episode names like this, but at least if you can't
Okay.
do the exact name, at least the
No,
concept.
it's
But
okay, yeah.
name an episode.
Rejoined.
Rejoin. What would be your first comment to someone who said, I'm going to watch that episode? What would be you better know this going in?
Yes. If you're gay, you're gonna love it. And it's top of mind right now because of Pride Month,
Mhm.
and it is one of my top five episodes of all time. And I cried so hard at the end that I had to take a Benadryl because I got hives because I just was like, and I'm so obsessed with that character. So I will just say, honestly, even if you're not gay, you're gonna love it. That's my comment.
Awesome. All right. One last one. I don't, because we haven't talked about this yet. So I don't, how's your Trek movie coverage so far?
Ooh, it's very poor.
That's right.
I've seen the motion picture.
Mhm.
Um, I think that might, I feel like, yeah, let's
That's
say
it.
that's the
Okay.
only one I've seen
So,
so
all right. Well, that's going to be pretty, so what would be, and more than one, but what would be the
far.
big thing you would change about motion picture?
Oh, that's a really good
Other than speed the F
question.
up. But anyway.
I it was pretty
Yeah.
long. Mm. It's been 4 years since I've seen it, so I don't have a great answer to that. Because I loved the visuals of it, so I wouldn't touch that. But yeah, maybe it would be like just speed it up a little
Yeah.
bit.
I will.
So
I mean,
yeah.
this is. I mean, I don't know. They rerun stuff enough, and I don't know. You
Mm,
you got the theaters near you. They probably run stuff all the time.
that's
But
true.
this is so cliche. But as someone who's like motion picture man, and then there's been this sort of resurgence in the past 10 to 15 years about like, oh, the motion picture. I'm like, guys, you can talk it up all you want. I've seen it, but because they've been all these re-releases and stuff. But when it was in the cinema here, in the past 3 years, whenever the
Mhm.
new director, whatever the version, there's 50 different versions, but whenever the latest one
Yeah.
came out, and I saw it on the big screen, cliche. It is one of those movies that should be seen on the big screen
Ugh,
because
I
like
can
you really get
imagine.
a sense of the space, like haha, but the sense of the space of like I never understood that this is V'ger that the Enterprise goes like this. I've never because it's just all this like
Oh,
gleaming
right.
special effects that mean, and then you finally get a sense of how they're actually moving, like all the things that are opening and closing, and you're like, oh, I get it now. And then you actually see
Okay.
so
Yeah. That would, I think they're releasing yet another version of it, if
yeah,
I'm not mistaken. So if I could catch that on the big screen, that would be pretty dope.
yeah, I suggest it.
Yeah.
All right, lastly, we go to priority one. So, with all of your things as a content creator, the good thing is you get to talk about whatever you want. But is there some Trek topic that you were dying to talk about with someone?
Oh, let's see. Something that I'm dying to talk about with someone. I think I'm just always dying to talk about how important Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek can change a life. And I mean that in such a literal way, and that it can change the trajectory of your life. I mean, like, the first Black woman in space was watching Star Trek when she was a kid. I think things like that are so important. And so I'm always dying to talk about like use Star Trek to motivate you to be a better person. Like I have used it to like get through some of the hardest times of my life. And yeah, so I'm always dying to ask people and probe into like, okay, has Star Trek ever really influenced you in a way that made you feel better or like got you through something tough? Like people talk about how, for example, Emissary got them through grief, or like The Visitor got them through like a grieving time with their father who passed. Serious things like that. I think Star Trek is amazing in that way, and that it can really help us like shape our world into something better. So I'm dying to talk about that. If you'd like to answer
Well,
how they
I
bring you
think
up.
there is a, I mean, and it can go a million ways. It's like I've been watching TNG when I was like 10 or something. And so obviously
Mhm.
it's in the brain there. But I mean, I think, and when you talk about sort of life, I think there's a tough part that I went through, and it was this, and it's odd. And again, different generations, but like there was this weird, because it doesn't make sense. After Into Darkness came out, which I forget, it's past '09, I forget what year, 12,
Mhm.
I can't remember. Which, spoilers, most people don't like it.
That's
But when
fine.
Star Trek Into Darkness came out, there was actually this resurgence of Trek fandom, which is like this sort of like
Mhm.
counterintuitive. But that was sort of a time when I had some bad stuff going on, and then there was all these podcasts. Well, I mean, they were there already; they were always there. But it sort of made me like want to engage. It was like I had never listened. I mean, like I was 20. I can't do the math, but I was older, but I was not a
Mhm.
young fan by any means, but I'd never listened to a Star Trek podcast. I'd not necessarily, other than like a circle of people that I already knew,
Mhm.
engaged with the fan community. But like I started listening to Star Trek podcast. It's over now, but I'll name drop it anyway. To the Journey, which is
Mhm.
a Voyager podcast from Trek FM, and then I listened to more, and that was the podcast network I got into. In fact, I got into it so much, I graduated from listener to podcast co-host, where I ended up getting arranged marriage to podcast co-host. So we did our own TNG podcast, and then we've known each other for decades at this point. But anyway,
Oh.
but that was a sort of point of like, just like, oh man, I'm not really feeling good. Da, da, da. I'm like, well, let me just sit here and listen to a Voyager podcast once a day. And then like, oh, I wonder if I can make a comment or something and send it down because I'm making me think. And then like they'd read it out, and then you get engaged and listen more, and you engage more, and you engage more with this community. And then next thing you know, you're part of it. And next thing you know, you're a contributing member of it. So that was my experience. So
Totally. Like, I love that. I absolutely love that. I feel like it's so true for hundreds and thousands of us. And that's special. It's special to be connected in that way. I mean, I'm talking to you from across the pond. Like, I would never would have, thought about something like this happening even a couple of years ago. So I'm really grateful. And I'm always loving to talk about it.
well, where can folks find you? What's going on? What do you want to share?
Yeah. So I am at zilatreks on Instagram and TikTok, no space. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/zilatreks, and I'm on YouTube at zilatreks. I also am starting, like I mentioned, Captain Summer 90, which is like a summer habit challenge where we do a good habit every day for 90 days, and we're doing it together. So I'm building a Discord, and that'll be linked in my link tree as well.
Awesome. Well, Zyla, thank you for joining us. Good luck to
Thank
you.
you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. This was great.
And with that, computer, Arch, in program.